welcome back to Salt and Burn This. My name is Sammy.
I'm Valerie.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. Today, we have a special guest joining us. So it's not just two ladies, but three.
3 whole ladies.
I know. So everyone, please welcome Shannon Christman.
Yay!
Hi, Shannon.
Hi. I am like so happy to be here. It's stupid. So this is awesome.
So happy it's stupid.
Yes.
That's a new one.
Yeah, we like to hear that. It's so happy it's
A
stupid.
lot. Shannon, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're with us.
I am too. I am a loyal religious listener. I've listened to every episode.
Aww.
So I'm so happy to be here.
Yay.
Can you tell us real quick which came first, the podcast or you watching Supernatural?
Me watching it because of the podcast.
So the podcast came first.
No, I think you were telling me that you guys were going to start it, and you were like, you should watch this show because Sammy and I are going to do this podcast, and you obviously have to listen to it or else. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that we were like published yet. I think that we,
we threatened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you threatened. I didn't tell anybody what we were doing.
So, but I also want to point out though, that didn't I say, don't watch the whole thing?
Yes.
I was like,
you did.
And what'd you do?
I watched the entire thing.
I was like,
it's
just wait.
hard to stop. It's like animals. Once you pop, you just can't stop kind of a thing.
We are a salty snack. Get it? Okay. Sorry. You can take that one
funny.
right out.
I think it should absolutely stay in. That should stay.
All right, Sammy
We'll
gets full on veto. Yeah. I wanted to let you know that completely unrelated to the podcast. This morning I was walking the dog, and she, well, you guys know she's this little foofer doofer. I was out of poop bags, so I was like, I'll just run over to the dog park and grab one, because they have poop stations everywhere here. And there was a guy who had 2 larger dogs in the park, and my dog does not like big dogs. And as I got closer to the park, she started to do her aggressive spinning and barking, and these 2 giant dogs came running up to the fence, and I'm like, oh no, and I'm yelling to the guy in the park. I'm like, don't worry, I'm not coming in. I just need to grab some poop bags. He's like, they're friendly, which is what everybody says about their dogs. And to prove this point, the larger of the 2 dogs popped open the fence door and came running out to us.
Oh, wow.
Julietta and myself did a collective poop when this dog just popped out of the fence. And I mean, for a second, the 2 of us were kind of frozen. But this giant dog came over and was like, hey, you guys, what's going on? Wag. And of course, Julietta then started, after she collected herself, she started to bark and freak out. So now I'm holding his dog by the collar and Julietta up on two legs, separately, just trying to keep the dogs apart. He comes out, he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Takes his dog back in the park and makes sure the gate is actually closed, at which point Julietta settled down. And his 2 dogs came and put their noses through the fence we're sorry, we didn't mean it. They were so cute. One was the smaller dog was a full-on gray pit, super sweet and soft. The other big guy was a pit horse mix. I'm not quite sure. But the big dog's name was Moose.
Oh.
I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect. The little one's name was Nellie, which
not
that's
squirrel.
Okay. Not squirrel, but I kind of held my breath when he told me her name. I was like, oh, so close.
Yeah. Speaking of moose, Shannon, you have a couple exciting things going on in your life. Okay, one is you've been recently engaged.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Oh my God. But maybe even more exciting is you saw said moose, aka Jared Padalecki, and his little wife in New York.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so tell us about that.
Okay, so I'm temping downtown right now for a construction firm, and I just was walking out on my lunch break, and I was going to go to Pret, which is a couple blocks away, and I love Pret. So I walk out, and I just see him walk by, and I do a double take. I'm like, And I was like, no. But then I looked and I stared because of course I did. And he's walking, he's like deep in conversation with this little woman who was definitely, very obviously Genevieve Padalecki.
Yes.
And they were both holding coffee. They were deep in conversation. And I was like, I just stared after them like with my mouth open, like, what do I do? What do I do? They were walking really fast. So they were like obviously on their way somewhere.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to run after and be like, So, and of course, I wasn't sure whether to call him Dean or Sam because I know him as Dean from Gilmore Girls, which is where I fell in love with him first. And then of course Sam from this, and he's very, very tall. He's like 7 feet tall, and skinny, and his hair is short now for the show that he's doing for Walker that he's doing now, and he's so dreamy still.
She says, talking about him walking away.
Well, I saw his face first.
So congratulations.
Yes, on both of those big events in your life.
Season 2, Episode 6, No Exit. Sam and Dean have a problem. The ghost of America's first known serial killer is back for more gore. And they have another problem. Jo, who follows them on their hunt despite her mother's objections. Written by Matt Whitten and directed by Kim Manners.
As much as a fan of Kim, I am disappointed in this episode.
Are you kidding me?
I love this episode.
You guys are going to hate me.
Yeah, I am. This was like the most suspenseful, scariest episode I have seen of Supernatural so far.
I love this. I love the first of all, it takes place, where it takes place, near and dear to my heart because I'm from the Philly area. So
okay. Perfect, because this is our MapQuest moment. So yes, so this episode takes place, like as you said, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've never been to Philadelphia. My sister lived there for yes. My sister lived there for like 3 to 5 months. I can't remember. It was a very short stint in which she was doing an exploratory phase, just like, maybe I'd like to live here in between jobs. Sadly, I did not get to go visit her in that time, but you're from there-ish.
Yes. I was born in the city, but I lived in the city for like the first couple of years of my life. But then we moved to the burbs. But when people ask me where I'm from, I always say I'm from Philly or the Philly area.
It's Philly sounds cool. Philly. I've never worked there, and I don't have any family connections there. So, love the cheesesteaks.
Yeah, they're good.
Which one do you prefer, Shannon? Because there's a couple different kinds, right?
Yeah, I'm not one of the. Honestly, it's been so long since I've been there to even have them that I don't even remember what the places are called.
Right.
But I have been to both places though.
Okay.
And there isn't a particular one I like better. I think a cheesesteak is a cheesesteak.
Right. Well, there's ones that
people are going to hate me for saying that too.
Well, because there's like the kind that has basically like the cheese whiz kind of cheese, right?
Yeah.
And then there's one with provolone. Is that correct? And then you can have without onions. That's as much as I know about a Philly cheesesteak. I thought that they came with like the green peppers also, but I don't think that's traditionally part of a Philly cheesesteak. I think that was something that was added somewhere else.
Yeah, I think it's just the meat and cheese.
And onion.
Or without.
Or without.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's our MapQuest connection. So thank you, Shannon. I was all set to say another city that I have no connection to.
But this one exists, so that's good.
So far, all of the cities have existed. that they've discussed in season two.
Okay,
yeah.
Which is great because it makes it a little bit more personal and less about why would they pick this town that doesn't exist, which we still don't know. So the recap mostly about Joe saying, I can help, and you're afraid of my mother. And
I would be too.
Yes, I am. So that's the main gist that I got out of the recap. I'm like, this is going to be a Joe episode. This is going to be Joe helping them somehow, and with the fear of mom being on Dean's mind. So, and with that, we launch into the cold opening.
Yes. Well, they also in the recap throw in the bits about where like Ellen talked about her knowing John or like their past relationship, and Sam and Dean being like, "Why do you think you never mentioned her?" And which also is an important little segment to note.
Right. All foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the teaser, we have our little Chiron that's back, finally.
Finally.
Philadelphia.
Philly.
There is a girl in her apartment. She's on the phone with, I assume, the super or the landlord or something of that ilk because the lights are being very faulty and flickery.
Massively. And it's not all at the same time. They're all like doing different, different flashes, different times.
What a headache.
Yeah. Her cordless phone was working just fine, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so she's mad at the super or the landlord saying, you said this was going to be ready for me to move in. So clearly she's only been there a short time.
Yeah. Yes. And then when she hangs up, she notices like a little drop of gross black goo.
Like oil or something.
Yeah. On the coffee table. And even is like, ew, gross. And then at that same time, some drops on her shirt.
But she looks at it. She's like, okay. And that's it. I would have been like, shirts off, like in the bathroom, wiping this off. She's like, well, all right. I guess it's because she gets distracted by the noises that she starts hearing. I don't know.
Yes, because there's like a lot of rustling in the walls. The gross black goo starts like oozing out of the outlet on the wall.
Yeah.
And, she goes to investigate. And as she's like peering into the outlet,
which is naked, like it's an uncovered, like an unfinished outlet box.
There's no plate on it.
Not safe.
No, and also another reason to call the super and be like, what the hell?
Exposed wires, hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And as she's like
out of it.
looking into it, and the camera is like starting to like really zoom in on the outlet, and then all of a sudden you get the first of many jump out moments.
Yes.
The creepy
eyeball. Yes. Creepiest eyeball that then like dilates or undilates or restricts or something like his iris goes.
Yes. And she screams and then title screen.
Yes.
I also wrote apartment envy. Like, really nice apartment.
Gorgeous apartment. I love the exposed brick.
Yeah.
I've tried to scale back on my apartment envy. And I'm glad you said it and not me, but I definitely was there. I just didn't write it down because I didn't want Sammy to come through the camera and be like, stop envying everybody's apartments.
No, I thought it was a cool apartment too. And think of it, we haven't really seen a lot of apartments lately.
It's been a lot of outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
So back at the Roadhouse, Sam and Dean are outside. I'm assuming they must have like slept out in one of the back rooms or something because they're talking about going to LA. They don't really have anything to do, but hey, let's go to LA and rescue Katie Holmes from an evil cult. Which the first time I heard it, I was like, huh? And then I had to be like, oh, duh, Valerie.
Yeah.
Duh. And they're like, haha, funny. And then they hear like crash bang inside the Roadhouse.
Yes. Well, there's two comments here that I think kind of set up a lot of some of the underlying theme of this episode where Sam is like, didn't expect that joke from you. It's kind of bitchy. And then when they hear like Joe and Ellen yelling at each other inside the Roadhouse, then Dean says something about a cat fight.
Cat fight.
Yeah.
I just rolled my eyes at that.
I rolled my eyes a lot.
I was like, women are allowed.
Moments.
Yes. I was like, women are allowed to fight. Women are allowed to argue without being called hysterical or catfight.
Right.
You know, when guys fight, is there a term that's used when guys fight? No. So why do women have to be denigrated? Grr. So Ellen and Joe are fighting basically about Ellen not wanting Joe to I guess Joe's found a case or has been working on a case and wants to go do this hunt case. And Ellen doesn't want her to go. Ellen doesn't want her to be a hunter, doesn't want her going out and putting herself in danger. And Joe is acting like a teenager, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, no, I want to do this. No, you can't. Why don't I just go lock myself in the basement? If I can't go do this, I'm going to take my ball and go home.
Yeah.
And it really, this is one of the things that got me about this episode is that I went from really liking Joe to, in this episode, not liking her because of the way she was portrayed. Right now, like, let's just say in this moment, I get that she's standing up for herself and she wants to go and do these things, but the way it's written, it just makes her look petulant as opposed to, Mom, I'm going to go do this thing, you know, and I didn't like it. So that's all I'll say about that particular moment.
Okay.
Luckily, in the middle of all this, a tourist family walks in to the Roadhouse, and every one of them, even like the toddler and the baby, have T-shirts on that say, Nebraska is for lovers.
With a little like illustration of a ear of corn.
Right.
Well, why are you bringing your toddler and your infant into a bar at like 10 in the morning is what I want to know. Like,
well, I just want to say that brings us back to a previous episode, Sammy, where I was like, I think the Roadhouse is in
Yes, because
Nebraska.
I had noticed that the radio said while they were driving towards the Roadhouse, "Rockin' Nebraska, bringing you the next tune," something stupid like that. So then I thought, okay, maybe it's in Nebraska, but maybe also they're just driving through Nebraska to get there. Who knows? But this is clue number 2 that it's probably in Nebraska, considering the family is wearing.
All 4 of them just bought those shirts.
Nebraska is for lovers.
Yeah,
which is not the Nebraska state motto or state slogan at all.
Yeah, that's Virginia's. Virginia's for lovers, which it kind of cracks me up. I think they did that on purpose. I think everyone knows that is not the state motto for Nebraska.
Yes. Do you know what the state slogan is, though? Or at least now?
Corn?
No, but equally as funny. So I think at the time of this episode, it was like Nebraska ... the good life. In 2018, they changed it to, honestly, it's not for everyone. Which is fucking hysterical.
Not for everyone.
Love that so much. And in fact, I'm going to play you an ad, because that's not a joke. I thought that I was reading like a April Fool's joke or something, but no, they actually changed it. They're like, you know what? We don't get a lot of tourism here, so maybe we'll just be a little like tongue-in-cheek about it. And I'm from Nebraska. I was born in Nebraska. So being from Nebraska, I was like, oh my God, this is... What is this?
I want that shirt now.
I know.
Brilliant.
Mm-hmm. It is brilliant.
Well, just like if you've ever driven through Beaver, Colorado, all their slogans literally are "I heart Beaver." Best T-shirt I ever bought at a truck stop. So after the family decides to not eat at the Roadhouse and hit the Arby's up the road, shout out Arby's, the phone rings. And this is one of the things I love about the age of this TV show is it's the phone on the wall type of thing. And it'll ring until you pick it up. Right. You know, there's no like click over to voicemail. It'll ring until you pick it up or till the person on the other end decides to hang up. And so this phone is just like ring, ring, very insistent phone ringing.
And they're all like looking at one another like, are you going to get it? Are you going to pick it up? Like...
So Ellen does pick up the phone. So now Ellen is occupied by the phone call, which gives Joe a chance to talk to the boys about this case that she found and maybe, get them on her side about wanting to go and do this hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like it's a really interesting case. It's about these women who've been disappearing out of this apartment complex in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
And she hands Dean, who reluctantly takes the folder, like looking over his shoulder to make sure that Ellen doesn't see him looking at this. And he's actually like, oh, who put all this research together? Did Ash do this? And Joe's like, I did.
Yeah.
My research, my case. Let's go do this.
Yeah, that invoked another eye roll for me, was the fact that he was so shocked that she could actually put any research together.
Yeah, I have that note here too. Like Dean having a hard time accepting a woman could do the job as well as he could.
Yeah.
And that's not the first time I have this note for this episode either. Like he's like,
yeah,
he pissed me off a handful of times in this episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think collectively the three of us will be pissed off at every single of all the same moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
This was one of them.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, that all of her research accumulates to, these women have kind of been disappearing,
Over
starting 80 years ago. Yeah. But it only happens every decade or two. So no one's really picked up on the pattern. But they also have never been solved. It's always they just go missing. And then that's that, wash your hands
Yeah, they
of
can't
it.
find any connections between them. And then,
So Ellen refuses to let Joe take the case because she won't, she refuses to lose her. Because as we know, Joe had said in like one of the previous episodes that her father died on a case, like on a hunt. But she says, if you boys want to go take it. But Joe is not going. End of story.
Yeah.
And you do what Ellen says because she is scary.
She's scary. Yeah. They're both like, you got it. We don't want her along anyway, basically.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, exactly. So off they go to Philadelphia. And they go to the apartment. They're able to get into the girl's apartment, and they've got their little EMF detectors.
Mm-hmm.
And they also notice the goo, the black goo. And
yes, there's another eye roll moment right before this, where Sam feels bad for taking Joe's case, because she did all this work on it, and Dean is like, "Yeah, could you imagine her on one of these things, though? Pfft, yeah, right."
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, pretty little blonde girl. What would she be doing? Filing. He didn't say this, but that's what he's thinking, is that she's not tough enough to, survive a case like this.
Mm-hmm. So yes, the EMF finds like the black goo coming from the outlet, and they recognize it as ectoplasm.
Ectoplasm.
This is the first time it's in Supernatural, right? Is ectoplasm?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I wrote that down too.
Okay, yay.
But what's funny is it's introduced and Dean's like, oh, it's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, which, Sammy, what's that from?
Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Yes.
But in this moment, I'm like, why is Dean being so flippant about this? Because Sam, the next thing he says is, one really pissed off spirit must have done this. Like ectoplasm doesn't just exist. Something really evil must be around here for this to exist.
Yeah.
And so I was like, why was Dean being so flippant in that moment? I mean, it's funny. I was like, yay, Ghostbusters. Wait, it's,
Literally think it was just an excuse to throw in a Ghostbusters
moment.
reference. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then check that off. Asked and answered. So they go to check out the other girl's apartment.
Yeah,
two girls have gone.
No, not yet. They are just because they're like, oh, so he must be in the building somewhere. So the spirit. So they're just like roaming the halls for clues. And while they're doing that is when they hear Joe coming down. Well, they don't quite. It's a girl.
They don't know it's Joe.
Yeah, it's a girl, and then they quickly figure out, oh wait, we know that voice, and it's Joe.
They recognize the voice, yeah.
Yeah. So this brings me to an outtake.
Okay, great.
Because when they hear the voice, they both kind of press themselves up into a doorway to kind of eavesdrop and not be seen. In this outtake, they go to press themselves up against the door, but the door isn't latched. and Jared actually falls into the room behind them. And when the door swings open, you see like there's a crew guy who's just like sitting on a bucket in this room, like surrounded by like gaff shit. He's just like sitting there reading a book or a paper, like between takes, like waiting. And so it's just so funny because you see like Jared kind of flip out of frame, and then the door swings open, and there's this crew guy like caught in the room, just like all by himself, just reading a paper. So that's my first outtake of this episode. I've got more. But yeah, okay, so now.
Again, big tree fall hard. This guy is so clumsy.
Oh, man.
Okay, so yes, then they hear Joe coming down the hall. She's talking to the landlord because she was just at a showing. And she's just like, oh, and my boyfriend here, Dino, if he likes it, then we'll take it. There's some little riffing back and forth, and then she like forks over this fistful of cash.
Yeah, she's like, we'll take it. And the guy's like, cash in hand. Okay.
Yeah.
There is a note that the guy says these are fully furnished apartments. So there's that whole idea of if someone just left town, it wasn't like it wouldn't be odd if they left all that stuff because it's a furnished apartment.
Right.
So, and nicely furnished, I might add.
Oh, yeah.
Very nicely furnished. Like I said, apartment envy.
Yeah.
So it turns out though that now the boys and Joe are in this apartment. Yay for Joe for securing that apartment for them. That Joe lied to Ellen and said that she was going to Vegas and so that she could be here to investigate with the boys. And Dean's like, oh my God, should not lie to your mother.
And she planned really well. She had Ash lay out a fake credit card trail.
Yeah.
Saved up all of her poker winnings from terrible poker players of hunters.
Yeah.
I love that, who was it? It was Dean who was like, hunters don't tip that well. Like already, like knowing already that like he and other hunters don't tip very well.
Yeah. Right.
Not something to be proud of.
No.
Oh, well, right. But they also are living off of stolen credit cards. So,
right, exactly.
All
the more reason to tip really well. It's not
and
your
so
money
while
anyway.
they're bickering, right. So while they're bickering back and forth, literally like brothers and sisters, bicker. Phone rings. I mean, Dean's cell phone rings, and it's, oh, hi, Ellen.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm so gonna tell her you're here. And Joe's like, please don't tell her. Don't tell her.
Yep.
And so that he ends up not telling her. Yeah, of course, I'll if she shows up, I'll send her home. Yep, that's what I'll do. Click. So now Joe owes Dean.
She gives him this like this shit-eating grin. She's like,
so, but now they've lied to Ellen.
yes.
So they decide to split up and go search the building for clues. So they say, Sam, you take the lower floors, we'll take the upper floors, and it's so that Dean can like keep an eye on Joe.
Yeah, and much to her chagrin, she's not excited about having to. In fact, she was like, "Hey, you gonna buy me dinner? Because if you're gonna ride me this close, it's only decent."
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
I love that line. She's got a couple really great lines.
Yes,
in this,
she does. She does.
In fact, untwist your boxers and deal with it is another one that I really like.
So, on our Twitter, we had someone like comment on something about Alona, saying that she had military training. And so I did like a little mini deep dive of her because I didn't before. I just kind of looked at her IMDb to see what else she was in.
Yeah, she's Israeli. So
She's
she probably
Israeli. I had no idea. Yes, so it's required there after high school that you have to serve. It's for women, it's 2 years, and men, it's 3 years of being in the military.
Kick ass.
What a badass. Yeah. So this, her knife flipping, she's probably just like, oh yeah, I just know how to do this.
Yeah. There's a couple
little at the dinner table. Like,
right. There's a couple little call outs to her in this episode too, that the writers did, which I liked.
Yeah.
Which I liked. But yeah, she's totally like dexterous with this knife. She's just like flipping it, spinning it to the point where Dean's like, can you put that down?
So yeah, while they're roaming the halls, Joe finally like has enough, and she calls him out on quote
his chauvinist
crap.
But Dean calls her out on her like romanticism. they're both right. You know, that she's got
Yeah.
this like, you know, semi-romantic view of what hunting is based on, you know, stories that have been told in the bar, and, you know, her dad's life as a hunter, you know, so she's right about his chauvinism, which I love that he returns with, listen, sweetheart, or
Yes.
something like that. I was like, ugh. But he does call her out at the same time. So they're both right
Yes.
about what they say.
Yes. And I do want to say that he does say, no, it's not that I don't think women can't do this job. I don't think amateurs can do this job, and you have no experience, as far as he knows, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
It was interesting also because, you know, in previous encounters with Joe, they both have been like, you know, flirty, you know, trying to like, oh, you know, maybe we could hook up or maybe not. Will they, won't they, if you will.
Right.
Right. And here he's treating her like a little child.
Little sister, like a brat. Yeah, exactly. Which is one of the reasons I felt like I didn't like her a lot in this episode, because of the way Dean was treating her, and the way she would respond to that treatment was, if he treats her like a child, she acts like a child. You know what I mean? So I felt like there's a lot of little sister coming from her, as opposed to kick-ass hunter girl. I also wanted to point out non-Dean Joe is that Sam is like basically absent in this episode.
I noticed that too.
And do you know why?
No.
When you talk about big tree fall hard, he had to have resurgery on his hand.
Oh God.
After the break, and so he was on set after surgery on painkillers and was so loopy that they sent him away to go like sleep it off because he couldn't do his lines and stuff like that. Well, he fell. I don't know if he fell downstairs or if he fell like off his bed. I don't know, but he fell. When he finally did wake up from this drug-induced stupor, he was like, he had no idea who he was, where he was, what had been happening. He retold the story at one of the cons, at one of the super cons. But yeah, that's why he's not in this episode, is because they were just like, go.
Yeah.
We will just write you in for certain stuff. And then, but he fell. Big tree fall hard. I was like, Sammy, you have no idea.
He's clumsy.
Oh my God.
Going back to this exchange with Dean and Joe, like I actually really enjoyed this exchange between them. And there's another moment later that I really enjoy between the two of them also. There's no innuendo, there's no flirty, it's just, you know, Dean is there saying, you know, you have a choice here. You know, you can do this, or you have a choice to do something else. You know, and he's, you know, in that moment, I feel like there is still a bit of that big brother type of mentality, you know, because that's all he knows. But, you know, he's also, he's just kind of letting her into, you know, your mom's not wrong here, you know, which I thought,
Correct.
thought it was nice to see that side of him.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes, because like right after that, yes, it turns like, listen, you know, I got pulled into this really young and I didn't really have a choice. You have a choice, and your parent doesn't want this for you, unlike mine, who, you know, it was kind of like, you're doing this, the end. You know?
Wasn't given a choice.
Yeah.
So then moving on, the camera, like now we see it coming through the vent. So the vent is like one of those really old-fashioned decorative ones. It's not just like
I love those.
I know, I do too.
I loved it.
So the camera's like looking through that at Joe, who's just kind of wandering around in the same spot, you know, with her EMF detector. There's a strange green light coming through the window. Which I thought was
I was like, is that a green screen?
Yes.
I was like, what is that?
But while her back is turned, through the vent comes a fucking scary hand, like slowly coming through all the holes. It's like blackened fingernails, and he just looks, gross and dirty, like he's been
like in the mines almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, neither of their EMF detectors are detecting this.
No, but she does like spidey sense it, right? You know, because like she quickly flips around and is like, whoo.
Yeah.
She like felt it somehow.
Yeah.
Kind of looks at it and then puts her EMF towards the vent, which automatically is like,
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I noticed in this episode was the sound whenever the hand, thing was doing it, whether it's his eyeball in the vent or the hand coming through the vent, the sound does this weird, like, I call it wubba wubba, which does not sound scary when I say wubba wubba, but it freaked me out every time I started to hear it. I would kind of like sit up. I'm like, oh, there's going to be a jump scare moment. Something's going to happen. What's it going to be?
Well, I didn't watch it with headphones this time, but I did notice it was almost an absence of sound. It almost sounded like white noise, I guess, not on headphones. So it created
it creates this weird wubba wubba.
Yeah.
That's okay. I call that you've got glitch. I have wubba wubba.
Okay. Dean starts to smell something that he can't quite place his finger on. It's definitely not gas. It's definitely not sulfur, because those are very distinct smells. Yeah. They take off the vent cover. Dean sees something in there and then reaches in, and after a while, pulls out a chunk of blonde hair still attached to the scalp.
And the whole time he's like got his hand in the vent though, before he pulls out this disgusting thing, the wubba wubba is happening. So I kept thinking that he was going to get grabbed or scratched or something by the ghost, by the thing. Yeah.
So this is what I meant by this was one of the scariest episodes I've seen, because these moments of suspense were literally killing me. Like, I know in Willy Wonka, he's just like, oh, the suspense is terrible. I hope it'll last. I was like, no, I don't want this to last. This is terrible.
Yeah. Oh, it's disgusting too. That was, So when he says like, oh, there's something in there, I was like, oh, he saw the thing. And the fact that he just kind of like stuck his hand in there, I'm like, you're crazy. Dude.
I know.
This person had hair snatched from their head. And so we go from that to another girl in another apartment. She's just coming home. She's flipping through her mail. And I just want to say this scene made me want to turn this episode off and walk away. Not out of fear, not out of gross, but the ridiculousness of the circumstances of this scene. And fight me all you want on it. This girl's opening mail. She's reading her mail. Black goo drips onto the mail she's reading. She looks up at the ceiling, which most people would do, doesn't see a source for goo, throws away the paper.
Which was like an invite to a lingerie party, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, of course it was. And then she starts hearing like scratching, not like rat scratching, but like scratch in the walls, and then start seeing the like plaster starting to kind of peel away. It looked to me like Hookman, like a callback to the Hookman.
Yeah.
Like someone was inside the apartment with a metal hook going and scoring.
That's exactly what I wrote. I wrote Hookman walls.
Yeah. And now the lights are flashing. Again, you've got that staticky electric sound where like something's shorting out, that terrible sound that you never want to hear when you're near an electric outlet, and she's just kind of like, what could that be? Yes! And her lack of, this isn't right, or maybe I shouldn't be standing here. She's just like, what could be happening here? I wonder. And it's like now plaster is falling. The walls are cracking, peeling, scraping. She finally says, oh, I should get out of here, or I got to get out of here. She says this to herself.
She's on the phone. Like, she looks at everything literally like falling apart and going wrong, like the lights flickering, everything. And then she picks up the phone. She was on the phone? She picks up the phone, I think, to like call the super maybe or something. Yeah. And it's like not working. And she was just like, screw this place. And then turns to leave. And then and she
tries to open her front door also, and the door won't open.
Yeah. The lock won't open. But so now she's like, now that the door isn't open and she's stuck in this apartment, she's standing in front of said gooey socket, looks down, sees the fingers starting through the air vent, and stands there watching this thing come through. And not only do his fingers come through, he then jump jump cutter, jump scare. His entire arm reaches through the vent, grabs her, is able to knock her off her feet. She falls to the ground, and then he starts to pull her through or to this vent, and then she starts screaming, but helpless to scramble away, kick at this hand, do anything, just This scene, I'm sorry, could have been ridiculously scary, but it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
I agree.
I was all right, not I've ever seen, but I was so disappointed in how they cut the scene together, because I was like, what is wrong with this woman? I understand being frozen with fear, but that's not what she was showing. She was just like, what's happening? What's going to happen next? I see a hand. I see an arm. It's grabbed my leg. It pulled me down. I mean,
I guess I'll scream now.
Standing so fucking long. Why did she take a step backwards away from the vent? What is wrong with this girl? Okay, it's a TV show. They showed what they had to show. Another girl has been taken by the ghost.
I wrote, by all means, just stand there and watch your ceiling crack. What the fuck, lady? That's what I wrote.
Thank you, Shannon.
And then I also wrote, why are you watching the fingers? Get a knife or something.
I was like,
She's just standing there watching it happen.
Kick it.
Like,
stomp on the fingers.
What's the matter with you? Like, oh my God.
So another girl is taken.
Yes. Almost willingly taken. Like, oh, she was just like, okay. Just drag me through. It's fine.
Yeah. Now,
like,
it could be.
You know what? While I didn't like think this was a great scene or anything, I did just kind of chalk it up to like, oh, maybe she's just so frozen with fear. She doesn't really know what to do. Like, I don't know. I didn't quite feel so passionately terrible about it.
You are so much kinder, Sammy, than I am in really any of these. Anytime I like pinpoint something I don't like.
The first time I watched it, I was kind of just like, why are you just standing there? And then the second time I watched it, I guess I gave her a little bit more credit, or them, whoever decided the scene to be. It was just like, well, maybe they're trying to be like, oh, she's just so frozen with fear. She can't, like, paralyzed with fear, can't do anything. I don't know. I just kind of moved past, I guess.
All right. Well, the only other thing that I can put in my head to give credence to any of that is that he was chloroforming her and that she couldn't respond.
Okay, so our next scene is Dean is pretzeled up on a lounge chair.
Bark lounger. Yeah. He looks exactly like Ash did.
That's what I said. He's sleeping like Ash.
On the pool table. He's not even on the couch. He's like on a park lounger. But, wakes up.
Wakes up. Joe is back at the table looking at the research and the plans and stuff like that. To flipping her knife. Dean comes to her, has a little bit of a my penis is bigger and therefore better moment with the knife.
Swing!
Yeah, pulls out his big ass knife, which is an impressive knife, I will say.
Indeed.
So it's like, here, this is going to serve you better than that little pig stick. And then she hands it to him and he softens when he sees the initials engraved on the blade, which are W-A-H. She reveals it stands for William Anthony Harvell. Obviously, that is her father. So, sorry.
He gives her back the knife. Yeah.
Takes his own back, and it's like, oh, okay, that was a dick move, maybe.
Yeah, now he gets
unintentional.
it.
Unintentional dick move.
Now he gets it. Yeah. And then they share, like, dad stories, which is really nice. Yeah. They each have their own, what do you remember about your dad, or what is your best memory of your dad? Which is nice. Like you said, it softens things a little bit between them.
I do want to point out a little line just because I think it's important for later. Joe says, the reason why I hunt is to feel close to my father, who, died when I was young. So I didn't really get to know him very well. But this is why I'm hunting, not because I have a romanticized, notion about, maybe a little bit, because she ties hunting in with her father, but it's not just like, oh, I want to go play with the big boys. It's like, my father did it and I want to take up his legacy kind of thing.
Right.
He holds a very special place in her heart.
Yes. And that's just one more thing that they have in common also.
Yes,
because of Dean's relationship to John also. They're more alike than they realize.
Yeah.
Right. slightly different reasons for wanting Dad's closeness. But yeah.
So yes, and Sam comes in, sans coffee, but says, oh, turns out another girl has disappeared.
Yeah. And I want to point out that chunk of hair still sitting on the table.
Oh, gross. I didn't notice that.
I didn't either.
Yes, it's still, and they've got it like wrapped in saran wrap partially. And I was like, I wrote down, I was like, this grossed me out more than anything else in this episode, was that on their table, on like a cutting board even, is this like shank of hair. And I was like, ugh. So Joe discovers that the building that they're in right now was built next to a prison. And on the field that the building was built on is where some of the prisoners were executed. So now they're thinking that it's kind of angry spirits are haunting this building.
Yes,
from angry convicts.
Yes.
Literally from the ground.
Yeah.
Because, but before their hypothesis was, well, maybe there was something violent that happened, since the building was built. Yeah. Either when it was apartments or when it was a warehouse right before. But no, it was an empty field before all of this, and nothing happened while this was a building. And then here's the ta-da moment of, it actually was the empty field that
people were executed in. Yeah.
They call in some help from Ash. Yes, who's going to send them a list of names, and he does. And Smarty Pants Sam notices one of the names on the list right away. What is it? Herman Webster Mudgett, a.k.a. H.H. Holmes.
Who is a real historical figure. He was considered America's first serial killer. And one of the ways he killed people was he didn't chloroform them. He would chloroform gas them. So they would suffocate and die in these gas rooms, in these gas chambers, which is why that's why I was saying maybe he was
chloroforming her,
like venting chloroform into that room. No indication that that's what he was doing, but it's a guess. Now I did go through a little bit of a rabbit hole only because on the table that they had all their research on, they kind of slid some articles around because they saw the ground plans of the apartment building. They slid this one picture across the desk, and it was a picture of a dead woman as they were talking about Mudgett. And I looked up that picture.
Okay.
And this woman was a murder victim, but not of Mudgett, of Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
And there's a family member. This is so weird. There's a family member of Mudgett's who thinks that his ancestor was actually Jack the Ripper.
Yes.
So they think that Mudgett, H.H. Holmes, and Jack the Ripper are actually the same person.
Yes.
I don't know how really connects, but there's tangential similarities in the killings and the precision of them being doctors, or being able to cut up the cadavers. It was all very similar, but not. Right. 100%.
Well, there's actually in 2018, it was 2017 or 2018, there actually is either a documentary or a book, some sort of media piece where, yes, that relative, it's like a distant cousin or something. Yeah. And somebody else, like a researcher, they go forth. I have not seen it.
Yeah.
That they do put forth like their argument for this is the same person. But this is 10 years later from this episode. So that's interesting that you found that out.
Right. And just to put a name to this poor woman who was killed, her name was Elizabeth Stride. She was a sex worker. She was the one murder victim of Jack the Ripper who was not mutilated. And they think it's because Jack the Ripper was interrupted. He actually killed another woman later that night and did mutilate that body. So I just thought it was for me, that was kind of a shout out to the props department again, being like, they were so specific in having that woman's picture on the table.
Right.
Budget.
I know. Most of what they say is actually pretty spot on.
Yeah.
They did not really branch off into their own thing, except for I couldn't, in the very brief amount of research that I did, couldn't find that his flavor of choice for victims are blonde women.
Blonde women, right?
And what else? The hair thing. I didn't see any evidence that he like kept like he
Souvenirs.
scalped his victims.
Nope.
So those were the only two little things that I think Supernatural threw in to kind of
But everything they said
focus the
about
story.
him.
Yeah.
Yep. He
Up
built
to the point that he was he requested to be buried in concrete, so his body would not be mutilated the way that he did his victims.
Yep.
That was all
100%
true. I like how true to the story they kept it.
But
Did either of you watch Timeless when it was on?
Mm-mm.
That's a show where like this historian from like now times goes back in time to different like events in history to stop a certain thing from happening. And they go back to Chicago at this time period in the murder castle. And like there's a whole episode dedicated to the guy he was.
Yeah.
And now that you say that thing, Valerie, about chloroforming via gas in the rooms, I remember a scene from that show where he did that to somebody.
But they did mention something about the chloroform. Like Dean says, like, oh yeah, he used to chloroform his victims, and then that's like when a light bulb goes off and it says, like, oh, that's what I smelled. So maybe.
So they decide they need to head into the walls.
Yes, because that's where he used to keep his victims, was like inside the walls.
Hidden passageways.
Yes.
Well, you thought Sweeney Todd was all, super, clever with the magic
doors and things.
trap doors and stuff like. This guy was like Sweeney Todd times 1,000.
Yeah.
He had an entire hotel floor built with secret passageways, sliding doors. Everything was a trick, and bodies were dropped into the basement, and people were dropped into windowless rooms where they were then gassed to death or suffocated, and they starved to death. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they go inside the walls. Dean and Joe are back together, paired up. This totally makes sense now, the whole like Sam being drugged up, because all the scenes about him are like they just got off the phone with him, be like, oh, he just finished the north wall, he just finished downstairs,
he'll give us a call when he's done.
That's funny. That's funny. So they're in the walls, and then they come to an area where it's too big for both of them to go in, and
too little.
Too little, and Joe can fit through.
Here it is.
Dean says this, like, oh, should have cleaned the pipes when Joe brushes up against him. So gross.
Yeah, like really, Dean, like really. Ugh.
Well, really writers. Because why slip in a masturbation comment?
Yeah.
Since there's been no sexual tension between them whatsoever, and a girl can't pass by a guy without him like getting a boner. I mean, come on.
Yeah, gross. I was just like, what? And know, that was even out of character even for Dean's dirty mind.
That's why I was like, bad for the writers.
Yeah. It was too much.
It was too much. It wasn't Dean, and she didn't deserve that comment.
No.
Mm-mm. To her credit, though, she was just like, shut up and get out of my way, basically.
Yeah.
She was like,
and
whatever.
punched him in the balls, I think, which is what it looked like she did.
So she does. She squeezes him by herself, goes down an air duct to the floor below. Dean is going to meet her down there somewhere, because they're on the phone with each other this whole time. She's slowly moving on, I guess, onto the floor below. Then she sees, kind of all around her, the ectoplasm oozing out of the cracks of the wall, kind of in every direction. Like she looks over there, like, it's there, and then she looks in front of her, it's there, and this is she gets scared. She's like, oh shit.
Right. And then Dean hears her scream on the phone. And so he takes off he's like, Joe, can't. And she's not answering. And so he's like, fuck trying to find a passageway. I'm just going to bash through the wall and get her that way. Can't find her, but he does see her phone.
Yeah.
I have a note here also that's like, time to destroy property. Why is no one ever around when they want to break into walls? Like, does no one live in this building? Like, there's never anyone there. No one in the hallways. No one comes out of their apartments to be like, what's going on?
Why is there a woman screaming behind my walls?
Yeah, like...
That's a
Whatever.
good point.
It's just a TV show, Shannon.
I know.
Just a TV show. Welcome to my life, Shannon. So he realizes that this isn't the way to go. He's not going to be able to get her this way. And I'm assuming he's stomping back to their apartment and runs like full blown into Sam. And Sam's like, whoa, we'll get her, but not the way you think. Let's go talk about this.
Yeah, so Sam and Dean go recoup, and while they're trying to figure out another way to get to her, because she's probably still alive and inside some sort of wall somewhere, but they've checked all the walls, so they gotta find a different way.
Yeah, and there's no basement in this building.
No, and right then Ellen calls. And she has since seen through both Joe's bullshit and Dean's bullshit when he's like, oh, she's doing feminine things. And she's just like, no, try again.
Ash told me everything.
Yes.
Folded like a cheap suit, which of course he did. Because it's Ellen. Of course he did.
She's
what was Joe thinking? Yeah.
So he ends up kind of sort of spilling the beans. It's just like, I promise I'll find her. And she's like, what?
Yeah, I'll get her back. What?
Get her back from where? Yeah.
Yeah. The thing we're chasing has her. Yeah, and she's like, I will be on the first plane out. Boom. End of conversation. Hangs up the phone.
There's a foreshadowing moment where Dean is like, I promise I will go find her. Nothing's going to happen to her. And she's like, that's not the first promise I've heard from a Winchester.
Yeah.
And he's like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So then that's when Sam remembers the murder castle that we've been talking about, which is a real thing that existed. He pulls out the picture of it and says, not only did he have things hiding in the walls and chutes and things, but in the basement, were all these other terrible things like acid vats and like lime pits and all that stuff. And where there is no basement in this building, there are like kind of old sewers around that haven't really been used. So maybe, and then Dean's like, doesn't even want to hear the explanation. Yep, gotta go.
Yep. Let's go get those sewers. So then the next thing we see is Jo, and she's alive. And she is, it looks like she's trapped in like a metal, I thought she was in a vent, because she can see through like a metal crack. Yeah,
to the side of her, there's like a tiny, like a slot, big enough. Yeah, big enough for her eyes, like a visor almost. It's a tomb, basically, like in a dungeon. She can't stand up. It's a coffin.
It's like a coffin almost. Yeah.
Jo sees the scratch marks above her
from other women. I mean, it's blood. It's just blood soaked with scratches, and she has a moment of like recognition of
where she is, what happened,
where she is. Yeah, and she's scared, but at the same time, she hears noises coming from kind of across the other side of this sewer, like through that crack. She can see there's another identical crack like directly across the room from her, but it turns out it's the other girl who was just taken.
Teresa,
and this is one of my favorite lines. Thank you for giving this to Jo. You may not like this, but I'm here to rescue you. Trapped inside a box, just like you.
Just like you, right?
Yeah. And I was like, I'm so glad they gave that to Jo, because she's got this bravado about her. She's clearly scared, about this, but she's also wanting to comfort this other girl and has this feeling that she will succeed in saving this girl, which is why she went there in the first place, why she put herself in danger, why she made herself bait unintentionally. So thank you for that, writers. This ghost, I just want to say, fucked up 2 times with Jo. Left her in a box with a flashlight and left her in a box with her daddy's knife.
Yes. Well, he probably didn't assume that a woman would be so prepared with things.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Oh, stupid girl. Just going to throw her in a box. Ha ha.
Yeah. What's a flashlight? And the wubba wubba starts again for me. And there's like this slow pan of the camera, and it's like there's going to be jump scare. There's going to be, and there is. And the hand reaches in and like yanks her hair, like Yeah, and tears off a chunk of Joe's hair.
Yeah.
I wrote, "Oh my God, what a headache she's going to have."
Oh my God.
That's what I wrote for that.
Yeah,
Leave
and
a mark.
that was an excruciating build up to that jump out
yeah.
moment.
That was the longest. I was like, just do it, just do it, just do it, just do it, you know, and they didn't, and then they finally did. And again, Joe's fear in that moment, her bravado's gone in that moment. You know, she doesn't know if she's going to die or not.
And just a little shout out to Alona for having to be filmed inside of a box like that for like 2 or 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
Well, most of the time they did try and open up the roof of the space. But a lot of it actually was her
In a
solidly in a box. And my claustrophobia would probably have taken over at that point.
Yeah. 100%.
I've had to, even just in, let's say when we've done like Romeo and Juliet, and Juliet is dead on the slab and she's covered with just a shroud. I've had actresses not be able to handle that in rehearsal. It's one thing to have to be under the shroud for just the length of the scene that you're doing on stage, but when you're in rehearsal and you're under that shroud for a really long time, I've had actresses like full-blown panic. So I can't imagine actually having to be in the box. You know, your mind just starts to do things.
Yes, especially considering the subject of a serial killer ghost is coming after you.
Right.
So cut to Sam and Dean. They're walking around the building's grounds with a metal detector looking for the sewer. They do find it. After some digging, they find the door, old school manhole, I guess. They open it up and then on the way down.
So this brings me to another outtake. This was actually a practical joke on Jensen and Jared by the crew. That as soon as they open the lid of this thing and they climb down into it, the crew takes 2 buckets of water and just whoosh on top of Jared. Just 2 buckets, whoosh, whoosh. And they yell something at him, like something like, "How to wake you up in the morning, boys," or something. I don't know what they said. But total practical joke on the boys.
Well, yes, that was a retaliation practical joke because they were in the sewer, like I think a couple days before that, and they were getting all wet, like crawling around, and like the crew and Kim and everyone were laughing at Jensen and Jared. So then they pushed Kim into the water. Like they just went.
See, I knew there was a reason why the crew did it. I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah, or like they somehow like got like Kim and stuff wet.
Got him wet.
Yes.
Nice.
So then they were like, we're gonna get you.
I just love that Jared was like, "Son of a bitch." So in the sewer.
Yes, Joe is desperately trying to kick her way out of her tomb to no avail.
And the ghost shows up.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
And he's just suddenly there. That was the weird thing.
Yes.
It was just like his mouth, just like in the,
all you see is his like gross crusty mustache and his gross crusty teeth. And it's his whispering. It's like,
"What a pretty girl."
Yeah.
Ooh.
And then he reaches in again. And this time he's touching her. He's like caressing her almost.
Yes, it's the slowness of everything that is.
He's so deliberate. He's like,
It's
he touches her
disturbing.
face, her collarbone,
her arm. And it feels like it goes on forever. And I don't mean like, like roll my eyes, like, oh, please stop. No, it's just like,
torture.
oh my, yes.
Yeah.
Like I could feel that like on like my skin just watching it. Like I could feel his hand on me. Like, oh my god, it was so disturbing.
But then she finds her moment and stabs him with her little pig stick knife, and it dispels him. You know, he screams and like goes away, and she's like, "Yeah, pure iron, you son of a bitch."
Yep. Go Joe.
Yep.
Yeah.
In another scene, in the next scene, the ghost is back and he does it again.
Yeah. Is there something that happens? Oh, it's just Sam and Dean crawling through the sewer tunnels, but I just loved the camera work that was going on here. It looked like a video game to me. Like, because the camera is like from another point up top. You see the flashlight, and then you see Dean crawl through as like a bird's eye view, then darkness, and then you see a flashlight, and then see Sam crawl through. I don't know. I was just like,
yeah, and
"Ooh."
you see Sam like kind of look up. He's like, no ghost up there, and then keeps going.
I don't know. It was just a nice touch. It just like it added to all the creepy factor of everything going on.
Yes. When the ghost reaches in and touches her this time, he's not like touching her. He like puts his hand over her mouth and is trying to suffocate her, and she can't get to her knife. She can't stop him. And that's when Dean and Sam burst in to that same vestibule area, shoot this guy with twice with the rock salt, and he disappears down a tunnel. And they're able to save two damsels in distress.
They do see a third tomb with a semi-rotting corpse in it. I assume that was probably the first girl.
First girl, yeah. And Sam, being Sam, is just like, oh, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. He's
just like, oh,
we didn't get to her.
Joe is like, okay, let's go. I'm ready to leave.
Dean's like, not so fast.
It's like, as much as we don't
want to do this, we have to use your original plan, which I don't think we mentioned before, but Joe was there to offer herself as bait because she is also a petite, pretty blonde girl. And now Dean is calling that back. And when at first he was just like, that's stupid. And now he's like, that's kind of the only plan we have. I'm sorry.
Yeah, only thing we can
She's
do.
like, what?
But
So
that is a lot to ask of Joe after she's been trapped in a tomb for hours. Who knows how long she's been there.
Scalp pulled and caressed and by this creep ass serial killer ghost. So the next thing we see is Joe sitting in the center of this vestibule by herself, waiting.
Yes.
She's just waiting. Clearly not taking this lightly. She's not just sitting there. She is sitting there alone, but she is tense. She is scared.
Also knows that she can't really react to anything happening. And again, the build-up is excruciating here.
Yeah.
Because you see the ghost appear.
Yeah,
but
he
when
just
it happened,
he apparates behind her, but
he's
it takes a long time.
Yeah, and he's a shadow to the point where I kind of leaned in. I was like, did someone just move behind her?
You're right.
I didn't.
Yeah.
It well done. And he takes his own sweet effing time moving up to her. She clearly senses he's there. She sensed him, when she was in the hallway, and she senses him now. But he's just like walking up to her. He's got no reason to rush this. He's going to save her every moment. And just before he really gets to her, that's when, Dean and Sam are like, now! And they shoot, I thought they were shooting the ghost.
Yeah, it looks like they're shooting at him and they miss, but no, they were carefully aiming like above/around him. They had set up like little drop bags,
like drapes or something.
Yeah, drop bags.
Similar to like what in theater, like when they make snow
bags.
But it's full of salt. So like when they shoot it out drops salt, and it the way they had set it up forms a perfect circle around H.H. Holmes.
I think they had pre-salted all but one wall, and so they shot this one wall, and it just completed the circle behind him.
I didn't catch that. I thought that they had like a bunch of them set around, and then they shot like one, which then set off, I don't know, a Rube Goldberg sort of thing that created the circle.
Right.
I get that your way makes way more sense.
Yeah. And they grab Joe at the same time and like yank her out of the salt circle, out of that vestibule. And they leave the ghost in there, who immediately knows what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's like screaming.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes. And he kept screaming.
That was really satisfying because he lost control of his surroundings.
Yeah. And now he knows he's trapped, just like all of his victims,
Yeah. He now has no exit.
Shannon. Oh man, so glad you're here, Shannon.
Me too.
Joe and Sam are they have like escaped the sewer now. They're above ground again. They're just like sitting there looking at the open manhole.
Like, what do we do now?
And Joe's just like, well, what if someone finds the sewer or like a storm or something washes away the salt? And in comes Dean as an answer with a cement truck.
A lifted cement truck. Because no one's going to notice that missing.
No.
Like, no
And
one's
it just so happens, he knows how to drive
a cement truck.
a cement truck.
Cement truck, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to come in handy as a hunter. You know, what Class C license, Class A license, you know.
Yeah.
Not that he's too worried about what kind of license he has to be driving.
In order to steal a cement truck. But not only does he know how to drive it, he knows how to make the cement.
Yes. How to operate it, yeah.
Yes.
And so then they pour the cement through, and they're like, nope, he's going to be trapped down there a long time, which I thought was clever.
Until hell freezes over.
Yes. I thought it was clever that they are cementing not only his spirit, the way that his body is also encased in cement.
Right.
But he's a spirit, so if the salt does get somehow moved by a storm or other ways, couldn't he just walk through the cement as a spirit?
Yeah, I guess it was more about keeping people from accidentally stumbling across him. And if they sealed off the top, then chances are storm waters weren't going to be coming in there. So I think it was more about keeping people from accidentally stumbling upon his body. That's my 2 cents. And the wrought iron doors. But
I was just like, he's a spirit. I don't see how cement would keep him in.
Yeah, I don't think it was to keep him in. I think it was to keep people out. Is what I thought about the cement.
It would have been really smart, though, if they had like thrown in some salt in the cement as it was going down.
There you go.
There you go.
So anyway, cut to, it's dark. They're driving. You see, yes, you see Dean in the driver's seat. You see Joe in the back seat. You see Sam in the back seat. And then Dean says, "Oh, you weren't really kidding about flying here, were you?" And then shows Ellen.
And you see Ellen.
Who looks super pissed off.
Yeah. And
I loved this little moment where Dean's like trying to break the tension, like, oh, let's listen to some music. Turns it on.
Click.
All you hear is, "You're as cold as ice." And she clicks it off.
I was like, that's really on the nose, but okay.
I loved it anyway. I didn't care.
Yeah. And then he says, "Oh, this is going to be a long ride." I'm like, it's a 22-hour drive. You have no idea.
No idea.
Oh boy,
how long a drive.
You could taste the tension in the car,
and Ellen not making any apologies for it.
No.
And Joe and Sam kind of exchange looks too, like,
yeah.
It's like that emoji, you know, that's just like the.
Yeah, exactly.
Then they're back at the roadhouse. They all go in, and she shortly kicks him out, like right after that.
Yeah.
But he's trying to take the blame. He's like, listen, this is my fault. But also, Joe did a really good stand-up job there. You know, maybe you should give her a little bit more credit. Ellen shuts that down, like, right away. She's like, no, get the fuck out right now.
Well, because he also says, you know, her dad would be really proud.
Oh,
that's what sets her off. Is like,
and she's like, nope, I don't fucking think so. Not from you. I don't want to hear that from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another little foreshadowing or like teaser moment. So she kicks them out. She's like, nope, I need a moment alone with my daughter. Joe and Ellen are kind of back at it again. You know, she's like, they used you as bait. And Joe's like, it was necessary. We had to. And
we saved the girl.
Yeah. Ellen breaks a little bit and she's like father, like son. That's what this is about. You know, she's kind of let something slip that she didn't really want to because she tries to stop herself after that.
And Joe's like, what aren't you telling me?
Yeah. He's like, John, what are you talking about? I thought you were friends. And Ellen says, you know, she doesn't say anything, but nods. You can tell by her face that she's like, okay, yes, there is something that I'm not telling you, and now I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
We don't hear it. We cut to Sam and Dean sitting out outside by the car. Joe storms out of Roadhouse. She is She's pissed. She's distraught. There's a lot of emotions going on in her face. You know, she was definitely, a bomb has just been dropped on her, and she was not expecting it. Dean tries to like talk to her, touch her. She's not having it. She's like, no, get away from me. Don't touch me. I can't right now.
And he's like, okay, fine. Talk to you later. And he's not going to put up with that. And he's like, all right, she's not going to do this. Let's go. Yeah.
But she does like call him back and say, so my dad, turns out that he had a partner on his last hunt. He usually works alone, but decided to work with somebody else that he thought that he could trust, which was a big mistake because that guy got him killed. It was your dad. It was John. John was his partner. John ended up getting my father killed, and he never came back because he couldn't face the music, couldn't look my mother in the eye.
So now we know why John never mentioned them, never talked about them.
So I hated this. I thought it was so unfair of the writers to do this to me and to these characters. It was like every single one of them, because Ellen went from, she contacted John about the demon, welcomed the boys into the roadhouse knowing John's history, but didn't let on that, the boys had anything to be concerned about. She kept this from Joe, which I get. But for her to then blame the boys for something John did, I didn't think was fair. I know that she was afraid because they were, because they're hunters and Joe went with them, and she could have gotten killed. Joe made that decision to go with them. The boys didn't take her along. They didn't go together as a team. That was all on Joe. So why she was mad at the boys, that to me wasn't fair. And then Joe also being mad at Dean for something they had nothing to do with. I was like, I understand the mixed emotions of everything that was just dropped on her, but I hated how the writers did this. It wasn't fair because it made me not like Joe because I didn't think she was being fair. It made me not like Ellen because I didn't think she was being fair. And it made me feel really bad for Dean and Sam, who had nothing to do with any of their current emotions. And again, since I haven't watched forward, in this rewatch adventure here, I don't really know what happens next in this sequence. So I am angry in this moment for the writers making me not like Joe and not like Ellen, because I love these two characters. And the way I walked away from this episode was angry and disappointed.
I didn't feel that way, actually, not at all. I can definitely understand why Ellen felt that way. She is a mother, and I think that it was her love, instinct, maternal stuff. I'm not a mother, but that's what I felt from this, is like that part of her life was taking over, her protection of Joe. Because in the beginning, she's like, no, you're not going to go because I'm not going to lose you, because she's lost her husband before in this way. And I think maybe this was a little bit triggering for her. It's just like, oh, someone's going off with a Winchester. And while, yes, these boys had nothing to do with that, I don't know. I guess I understood why she was so mad at the boys, because yes, Joe went on her own, but Dean did lie to her and say, Joe is not with me right now. She just knows Joe went on a hunt with Dean and she got herself captured by a spirit.
And then used his bait.
Even if it was Joe's idea to begin with, Dean still said, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's use this girl as bait. An amateur, as he said in the beginning, as bait. And as a mother, that wouldn't fly, I don't think. In any case, even if Joe did say, like, yeah, I want to do this, I think her, as Joe's mother, is just like, nope.
I get it. That's completely valid. It doesn't change how the way the writers wrapped up this episode with that amount of misplaced anger and guilt, especially given how welcoming they were in the beginning when Ellen had this information about John already at her disposal, knew this about their Sam and Dean, and then used that against them in this episode. I don't think that was fair of the writers to do that. I understand
I disagree.
her being angry.
I don't know. I felt like it was kind of justified. I do. Because she gave Sam and Dean a chance in the beginning, tries to, she was kind of feeling them out in the beginning, being like, yeah, I knew John. Was kind of holding back some information, not being as open until the end of that episode.
She kept them at like an arm's distance. Like
Yeah,
she
she
was
did.
still very like.
So where's the righteous anger at Joe? Joe did the biggest lying of all. Not only did she lie to her mom about, she went against her wishes. She lied about where she was. She made Dean lie. Well made. She asked Dean to lie for her.
I think that she was angry at Joe. I totally got that from her, that she was angry at Joe.
I don't know. I hate that. I'm mad at these two women who I thought were these really strong, great characters. And I feel like they're going to be written off because they just so easily dismissed Sam and Dean after, what looked to be like strong relationships. And I don't mean sexual relationships.
No.
I mean strong familiar relationships. And I feel like this is just a write-off for them. One misadventure of Joe's making and the boys are kicked out of their lives.
Well, we don't know that they're kicked out of their lives. We just know that they were kicked out of the Roadhouse for the time being.
It's also hard because, we don't really know how old Joe is. What if she's 17, 18, in which case, right. She shouldn't be doing this alone. If she's 24, 25, maybe less so, but still like, this is pretty young, you should be in school, you should be out, partying, whatever. I think Joe being angry at Dean, yeah, that was a little misplaced, but when you get a bombshell dropped on you like that, I get this way if some new information that really, when you get mad or emotional, you kind of feel yourself like heating up and, you get the flush on your skin and it gets tingly. And then, at least for me, sometimes I just say things that don't really make sense or I take it out on other people that are around me. Not saying that's the right thing to do, but I do that. That is a fault that I have, and I think that's maybe what Joe was doing in that moment, is she just heard John Winchester got my father killed.
And here are his sons.
Yeah,
right.
So this is who I can take it out on. Again, not saying that's the right way to handle your anger, but I don't know. I didn't feel so angry because I do that, so...
I'm not saying it's not justified. I'm saying my emotions at the end of it were angry at them.
Okay,
as
your emotions are
to...
justified. I'm not trying to unjustify your emotions. I just personally did not feel that way.
I kind of agree with both of you. I do understand Ellen's anger, and even though she accepted them both, for the most part, when they showed up, just from knowing who they were, and she kind of took them under her wing a little bit. The circumstances changed in this episode. They became who she knew their dad was then. I think in her mind, she just saw it happening all over again. And then it almost did. And it easily could have, had they not gotten there in time, had they, had anything been different about what they did, it could have ended up that way. And I mean, I do agree that while her anger at them is not fair, because they had nothing to do with what happened to her husband, I think it was just kind of transference at being in the same situation and being just that close. It's not fair. It doesn't make it right, but it's, that it does validate her anger to me, even if it's not the right thing, the right way for her to behave.
Right. And, everyone has deals with anger in their own way.
Right.
And it's usually
not the right way.
Yeah. And those various wrong ways, it could be any kind of avenue, but anger is a hard emotion to get control over. Some people are really good at it. I'm not, but
well, the other thing that we didn't get to experience though, also with the way this episode ended, was Dean. Dean was just slapped in the face with this new information that, again, John failed somebody, and not only failed them, but got somebody killed. That's got to be a hard take for the Winchester boys. And we don't get to see that. Like, I felt like they were robbed of their own discovery.
Right, because the credits show like 2 seconds after, she's like, this happened, get out of here.
Yeah, and so I think that added to my anger is that, oh my God, Dean and Sam, like they're already dealing with so much about dad.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like there's all these
And-
constant secrets that just keep like popping up, and they're like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So I think that just kind of fueled my. I was like, "Don't you dare do that to Dean." You know, that's kind of how I felt. I was like, "Don't do that to them. They don't deserve that." And so that's
And
why.
especially Dean, who we know is already carrying this burden that we don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, ugh, just one
The
more
secret
thing.
about Sam. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
What?
you know what? I would agree with you that this is a dissatisfying ending. But it does make me want to watch the next one and be like, how are they going to deal with this? You know?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying that I wanted to turn this off like I did that stupid scene with the girl, but
Poor boys. They just are constantly like the punching bags for their father's mistakes.
Yeah.
constant.
And it doesn't
John,
stop
we should
here.
be mad at John, not
Yeah.
John, definitely rethinking that Father of the Year award plaque, you know? All right, well, I definitely need some wine after this discussion.
I know. Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
right.
Needed a shower after the research because, ugh, H.H.
Yeah.
Holmes.
Yeah.
And now I need some wine.
Right. Right. So Shannon, what did you think about your first foray into? I guessing this is the first podcast you've joined. I don't know, but
Well, technically, I mean, I did a show earlier this year that was held in like podcast form, essentially.
fun. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, no, this is my first my first foray into this, and it was so much fun.
Yay!
Would you come back maybe on a
100%.
Right.
This is so
we'd
much
let
fun.
you talk more and not be as wound up about this episode.
No, this was fun, and I've like I said at the beginning, I was really looking forward to doing this, and I've been like I've actually since the podcast started, I've been saying to Valerie like I want to come on, I want to do it,
Yes.
I want to do it.
Well,
what episode can I do?
But what I love is that every time you did talk to me, it was after watching like another episode, and you'd be like, "Oh my God, Joe! Oh my God, Ellen! I love these characters! Oh my God, this is great!" And every time like a new character got introduced, you got super excited about these new characters. I'm like, "Stop watching the show! Wait till we catch up to it!" You know? Yay! What's the next episode, Sammy? Please wipe this off of me.
So the next episode is The Usual Suspects.
That doesn't sound like a haha.
No.
That doesn't sound like something that's going to make me feel better about this episode.
No, but there is an impressive guest star in that one, in which I would
Really?
have to probably watch a movie before.
Oh, all right. Well, don't mention that. I mean, I'm gonna go. I can't watch it right now, but this week is I'll watch the episode as a enjoyment, and then we'll see. We'll see if I know who you're talking about.
Yep.
I can't wait to listen to it.
Yeah, so it will be just Valerie and I for the next one. Sorry, audience.
But you guys can always revisit Shannon by going to her Etsy page.
Yes. Oh, yes. So I should have mentioned this is the Shannon in which we called her out at some point in the first season. I don't remember which episode particularly, but Bottles by Shan is her Etsy shop name, and she makes these gorgeous like wine bottle like night lights, maybe you could say, or lamps, vases.
Like fireflies in a bottle.
Yeah, it's really cute. It's all original artwork that she does herself. She made both of us one, like each one. If I remember to take a picture of it and put it up on our social media, I will, because it's super, super cool and very special. It's supernatural related, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I'm really shocked about how many hits I've gotten on those in particular.
Really?
Like, it's really like, and I do have to give props to Valerie for giving me this idea to do something like that. She was like, people will like those. People will follow those, and they do.
Yes.
So
Because they're awesome.
Props to Valerie.
Yes, they are awesome. So there's a link to Shannon's shop in our link tree type of thing that we have on Instagram, and I think we have it on Twitter and Facebook also, is the link tree. Can't remember, to be honest with you, but I know for sure it's on Instagram. So if you click our link in the bio on Instagram, you can see like our various little links that we have, one of them being Shannon's shop. So please go check her out. in particular the Supernatural bottles, if you're a Supernatural fan. They make good gifts for yourself and for others.
She can also make one to your liking
Yes,
if you don't see
yes.
anything you like. So
Makes custom things.
I do. They're all made to order.
In fact, mine was a custom ask for. I wanted the color story of the season 5 title screen because they're all different. As we've mentioned, each season's title screen splash is different, and the one for season 5, which is my favorite season, is like a red, white, touch of black, touch of yellow. So now I have a season 5 Supernatural bottle,
which we will talk about when we get to season 5.
Yeah, that's gonna be wow. But anyway, so the point being is like, yes, you can ask for custom things, and Shannon will do them.
Yay, Shannon.
Yay! So
Thanks,
thank you so much for
guys.
joining us, Shannon.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
It was so much fun, and please join us again for another one at some point. We
Yes,
would
I would
love
love
to
to.
have you. So please, everyone, subscribe, rate, share us on all platforms of podcasting that are available. Follow us and engage with us on all of our social media channels. I put our names in the show notes, but we're basically some form of @SaltandBurnThis pod, but they're all there. Still haven't done anything with the TikTok since I made the first video, but
I'm waiting for that. I am anxiously waiting.
So thank you for joining us this week, and we will see you next week for The Usual Suspects with our awesome guest star, who will not be on the podcast, but on the show, to clarify.
On the episode, yeah.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.